The certified letter from the commercial lending bank sat perfectly centered on my granite kitchen counter. I stared at the bold red text, Notice of Impending Default. The amount was exactly $150,000. I'm 32 years old, and I work as a senior commercial risk analyst for a major financial institution. My entire career is built on verifying signatures, tracking assets, and identifying corporate fraud. But the signature on this default notice was mine. Except I hadn't signed it. My older brother had forged my digital signature to secure a massive business loan, and he was 48 hours away from defaulting, which would instantly destroy my pristine credit and my career. I was holding the evidence in my hand, and I had exactly 3 choices on how to handle it. Welcome back to Carter's Story Vault. If you've ever had to choose between protecting your toxic family and protecting your own future, hit that subscribe button, because the choice I made left everyone completely speechless. Let me take you back 3 years. To understand how a $150,000 forgery happens, you have to understand my family dynamic. I am the quiet, analytical one. I deal in data, risk models, and spreadsheets. I keep my head down, I live below my means, and I value my financial independence above almost everything else. My older brother, Marcus, is the exact opposite. Marcus is the golden child. He is charismatic, loud, and constantly chasing the next million-dollar idea. For a decade, I was the family's unofficial fixer. Marcus would start a dropshipping business, rack up $5,000 in credit card debt, and my parents would beg me to bail him out to help him get on his feet. Then it was $3,000 for a failed app prototype. Then $8,000 for a marketing agency that never landed a single client. 2 years ago, I finally set a hard boundary. I told my parents and Marcus that the Bank of David was permanently closed. I wouldn't lend him another dime. They called me cold, they called me unsupportive, but Marcus suddenly stopped asking. In fact, 6 months later, Marcus launched a boutique logistics company and it appeared to be thriving. Suddenly, he was driving a leased Porsche SUV. He was picking up the check at family dinners. Our parents beamed with pride, constantly dropping hints about how Marcus had figured it out without my help. I was genuinely happy for him. I didn't care about the money. I just wanted him to be self-sufficient. Then came the morning I tried to close on my first commercial real estate investment. I was sitting in my broker's office, ready to sign the paperwork on a small multi-tenant office space I had spent 2 years saving for. My broker ran the final hard credit pull. He looked at the screen, frowned, and turned the monitor toward me. My debt-to-income ratio had skyrocketed overnight. There was an active $150,000 commercial equipment loan attached to my Social Security number, and it was 90 days past due. I didn't panic. I'm an auditor. I immediately pulled the origination documents from the lender. The loan was for Marcus's logistics company. He had listed me as the primary personal guarantor. I looked at the digital DocuSign signature. It was time-stamped for a Tuesday afternoon at 2:14 p.m. I checked the IP address attached to the digital certificate. It belonged to the Wi-Fi network at my parents' house, where Marcus lived in the guest house. He hadn't just used my name. He'd stolen my Social Security number from an old tax document my parents kept in their filing cabinet, forged my digital signature, and taken out $150,000 to fund his fake lifestyle. I printed all the audit trail, the IP logs, the MAC addresses, the routing numbers, and the default notices. I put it all into a single black leather binder. I had 48 hours before the loan went into hard default and my financial life was ruined. I sat in my home office, staring at the binder. I had 3 distinct paths I could take. Option A was the path of least resistance, the family option. If I confronted Marcus and our parents, I knew exactly how it would play out. They would cry, they would panic, my parents would beg me to just absorb the debt to keep Marcus out of trouble. I had $200,000 in liquid savings. I could pay off the $150,000 loan immediately. My credit would survive, Marcus would avoid prison, but my real estate deal would collapse. I would lose 2 years of hard-earned savings, and I would be working overtime for half a decade just to recover, all while Marcus learned absolutely nothing and kept driving his Porsche. Option B was the nuclear option, the justice path. I could take the black binder, drive straight to the local police precinct and file a police report for identity theft and felony wire fraud. I had the IP logs. The case was airtight. The bank would instantly remove the debt from my name. My real estate deal would go through, but Marcus would be arrested. For $150,000 in commercial fraud, he would likely face 3 to 5 years in state prison. My parents would completely disown me for sending my own brother to jail. Every holiday, every family event for the rest of my life would be permanently destroyed. I want to pause right here. If you were sitting in my chair, staring at that default notice, which of those two paths would you have taken? Would you have absorbed the 6-figure debt to save your brother, or would you have sent him to prison to save yourself? Tell me what you would choose in the comments right now, before I tell you what I actually did. Because I didn't choose option A, and I didn't choose option B. I am a commercial risk analyst. I read contracts for a living. And when I read the fine print of the $150,000 loan agreement Marcus had forged in my name using mom and dad's Wi-Fi network, I found option C. The loan was secured by the assets of his LLC, but buried on page 42 of the guarantor agreement was a standard commercial collateral clause. It stated that if the primary guarantor, which was legally me, cured the default and assumed the balance of the loan, the guarantor instantly assumed all voting rights, equity, and ownership of the LLC pledged as collateral. Marcus hadn't just forged my name, he'd legally weaponized his entire company, making it vulnerable to a hostile takeover by the very person he defrauded. I didn't call the police. I didn't call my parents. I called the lending bank. I authorized a wire transfer to cure the immediate default, legally activating the collateral clause. I waited until Sunday night dinner at my parents' house. Marcus was sitting at the dining room table wearing a designer watch, casually talking about expanding his warehouse space. My parents were nodding along, captivated. I didn't yell. I walked to the table and set the black binder down next to Marcus's plate. "What's this?" Marcus asked, looking confused. "That is the complete IP and audit trail for the $150,000 commercial loan you forged in my name using mom and dad's Wi-Fi network." My voice was completely flat. The room went dead silent, all the color drained from Marcus's face. My mother gasped, putting a hand to her mouth. "David, wait, I can explain," Marcus stammered, his confident persona instantly shattering. "I was going to pay it back. I just hit a cash flow issue. Please don't call the police. I'll do anything. Dad, tell him not to call the police." My father stood up, his face pale. "David, please. He made a terrible mistake, but he's your brother. We can figure this out. We can put a second mortgage on the house. Just don't send him to jail." I looked at my parents, then at Marcus. "I'm not calling the police," I said calmly, "and nobody is taking out a second mortgage." Marcus let out a massive breath of relief, assuming I was taking option A. He assumed I was folding. "I cured the default this morning," I continued, opening the binder to the final page and sliding it in front of him. "But if you had bothered to read the contract you forged my name on, you would know about the collateral clause. By curing the default as the primary guarantor, I just legally seized 100% of voting shares of your LLC." Marcus stared at the highlighted legal text, his eyes widening in absolute horror. "I'm not sending you to prison," I said calmly, adjusting my cuffs. "But I own your company now. The Porsche is a company lease. I canceled it this afternoon. The inventory is company property. I am liquidating it tomorrow. You are officially fired from the business I now own. and if you ever try to contact me or use my name again, the police report for the forgery is already drafted and sitting with my attorney." I turned around and walked out the front door. Over the next 3 weeks, I systematically dismantled his entire fake empire. I liquidated the warehouse inventory, sold off the delivery contracts to a competitor, and closed the LLC. The total liquidation netted $190,000. I paid off the remainder of the $150,000 loan, completely clearing my name, and walked away with a $40,000 profit for my trouble. Marcus lost his car, his company, and his fabricated status overnight. He had to move back into the guest house permanently. My parents tried to call me and guilt-trip me, claiming I was ruthless for taking his company. I calmly reminded them that the alternative was a state penitentiary, and then I blocked their numbers. People assume that if you force you into a corner, you have to choose between saving them or destroying your own life. They never realize that if you read the fine print, you don't have to be a victim. You just have to be the new owner.